ESPN Films presents
Hand off to Herschel, left tackle.
Storied Coaches,
the best against the best.
Storied Players, Storied Games. The SEC is storied.
I'm 87 today. You know, I'm not sure anyone aspires to be 87, but then again, it sure as hell beats the alternative. People give me a lot of credit for doing things I've done in my life. That doesn't really sit well with me. I've just done what should be done. Nothing more, nothing less. I look at someone like Wendell Hudson as the kind of person we should all admire. He is a real man of courage.
Hey. How you doing? What's that, brother?
What's up, big brother? How you doing?
Oh,
Wendell.
Coach, I'm telling you, good to see you. It is good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yet, people still make a fuss about what I've done.
I'll never forget that time I was over in Greece talking to these other guys who thought they knew something about basketball, and my friend said, "Yeah, you played at Alabama." I said, "Yeah, I played for CM Newton," and I thought that they were going to say, "Who is this guy?" They were like, "Mr. Newton, yes." I thought, man, you think you're a big timer.
I do have to admit, I've been in the right place at the right time. So I guess if you want to hear my story, I might as well tell it. After all, I am 87, and I might not get another chance. My name is Charles Martin Newton, but everybody has always called me CM. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Back then, the South was segregated. People now say, how could you have lived like that and not done anything about it? Now, it's a fair question, but when you grow up in it, it's really all you know. It's not an excuse. That's just the way it was. But my parents always told me to treat everyone with respect if you wanted to get respect in return. I never went to school with any black people, but I did play ball against them in an area that was called Colored Town.
There was a significant separation in the races to that point. And to do that, you sort of stepped across what was the norm, so to speak.
To me, when you played ball, the only thing that mattered was whether you could play or not. And the only reason the world even knows who CM Newton is because of playing ball. Growing up, I was pretty good at everything. Baseball was the game you played if you wanted to be a pro. As far as basketball was concerned, we didn't even know what the NBA was. But I wanted to go to college. And in the South, the only college that mattered in basketball was Kentucky. When I got recruited there, it didn't take much convincing for me to say yes. When I showed up on campus in 1948, they were the defending national champs, and their most towering figure was their coach, Adolph Rupp. He forgot more basketball than most coaches ever knew.
We have had many requests from coaches throughout the nation in regard to basketball as it is played here at the University of Kentucky.
Adolph Rupp had such a reputation as being the sort of the guru of college basketball, if you will. He was the face of basketball in the Southeast at that time.
The Baron motivated through fear, and I was scared to death of him. He once told my mother that I was too nice to play at Kentucky. She took that as a compliment. I did not. His criticism was hard for me to deal with because I wanted to please him so much, and I felt like I never did. I was only ever a sub on the team, but I did have a moment in the 1951 NCAA tournament against Illinois. Their star, Don Sunderledge, was killing us. And Rupp grabbed me as he put me in the game. He said, "Don't let Sun Village score. And for God's sake, don't shoot." Well, I didn't let him score. Heck, I pretty much tackled him when he got the ball. And I didn't shoot either. Matter of fact, late in the game, I was wide open, but passed to a teammate who made the shot. We won the game and ultimately the NCAA title. I personally didn't have a lot of success, but I still wouldn't trade my time at Kentucky for anything. Being with Rupp was like getting a master's degree in coaching.
I remember seeing him speaking to a group of coaches and talking about his two favorite plays. And he drew them on the board, and some coach raised his hand and said, "Coach, why are you showing us your two favorite plays when every coach will know what your two favorite plays are?" He said, "Because by God, we execute them. Nobody else can execute like we can."
And my coaching education didn't end with Rupp. In the fall, I'd go watch football practice. You might have heard of our coach, Bear Bryant. Yep, that Bear Bryant. Now, Bear wasn't the Bear yet, but you just knew he was special. He ended up leaving Kentucky. As for me, I was leaving too. I was looking to take the plunge with my high school sweetheart, Evelyn, and Rupp told me I couldn't have a scholarship if we got hitched. So I took a $10,000 signing bonus to pitch with the Yankees. When I picked them over Brooklyn and Pittsburgh, my dad said that was my best chance because they hadn't integrated yet and I wouldn't face any competition from black players. That statement might seem racist, but I just think he thought it gave me the best chance. But the Yankees had black players in the minors, and I lockered next to a guy named Nino Escalaro. He was my first black friend. I realized he was no different from me. Well, actually, he was a little different. He was really good. Nino would eventually make it to the pros and play for the Reds, while I took my bonus and paid for my final year of college at Kentucky. I wasn't playing basketball up there anymore. I was just a student. And that's when the gambling scandals broke. Some Kentucky players were caught point shaving and were ultimately banned from the game. But as it turns out, their misfortune would be my gain, as one of the players implicated in the scandals was supposed to coach basketball at Transylvania University. So then Coach Rupp recommended me. And just like that, in the fall of 1951, I wasn't getting paid. I still hadn't even graduated, but I was a college basketball head coach. Now, I've heard all the jokes about Transylvania University, but it's actually not located in the mountains of Romania.
It was the other university in Lexington. Not very many people knew it was there then.
We shared the same city with the University of Kentucky, but when it came to basketball, we were worlds apart. The school was really small, the team was really awful, and not exactly dedicated to the game. I once scheduled a Saturday practice during a big campus social weekend, and I did my best Adolph Rupp imitation and said, "Boys, you've got a decision to make. Do you want to be a part of the team or part of a fraternity?" Well, a third of the team chose the fraternity, so we played shorthanded that year, but it taught me a lesson. I couldn't be Adolph Rupp. I had to be me. And anyway, after I went 1-15 my first year, I don't think anyone was confusing the two of us. But I settled in and won enough games that they even decided to pay me. And as the years rolled by, the only really newsworthy thing I did at Transy was coach the school's first black athlete, Jim Hurley, in 1967. Basketball is an American sport, but to be truly American, it had to be played by all Americans. Integration was a huge issue in the country then. In the 1966 NCAA title game, Texas Western, with an all-black starting five, beat an all-white Kentucky team. People like to use that game to paint Coach Rupp, who was still at Kentucky, as a racist. But Kentucky beat an all-white Duke team in the semifinals, and I believe if Duke had won and played Texas Western, the feelings about Rupp would be different. I never thought Rupp was a racist. He was a product of his time. Now other people feel differently, and they have a right to their opinion, but I'm not changing mine, and I knew the man a long time. Rupp might have been catching some heat, But for me, life was great at Transy. I felt like I could have coached there forever and lived a fairly anonymous and happy life. But I guess that wasn't in the cards. Wouldn't you know that in 1968, Bear Bryant called me. The Bear was now the legendary football coach at the University of Alabama, where he'd already won 3 national titles. Bear was also the athletic director, and he wanted to know if I wanted to coach their basketball team. My competitive juices started flowing. I wanted the job. Evelyn wasn't so sure. She liked our life, and she worried about all the integration issues that were going on in Alabama. The Alabama football team was still all white in 1968. I slept on it, and I asked Bear if I could recruit without restrictions, which was code for can I recruit black players. Bear said I could recruit anyone I wanted. When I heard that, I took the job and hung up the phone before he could say another word.
He never asked Coach Bryant, am I going to make more money or less money? He just assumed he was going to make more money. He was going from Transylvania to Alabama, and he gets to Alabama and he takes a $3,000 pay cut and had to tell my mom, yeah, we're going from $15,000 a year to $12,000 a year.
That was not an easy conversation to have with Evelyn. When I told the president of Transy, he told me I was too nice to coach in the SEC, and that was not a compliment either.
When CM was hired, it was a gutsy move on Coach Bryant's part. It's not like CM was tearing it up there at Transylvania. And Coach Bryant built a new coliseum. He needed it filled up. There were sports he could not make money at, but he thought basketball was one he could if he had a good product. And he was all about the bottom line on these things.
I remember getting down to Alabama. I wandered into their new 15,000-seat arena. Alabama was a lousy basketball team in a football-obsessed state, and they were counting on me, a nobody, to change things. I sat down in the stands and said to myself, what in the world have I done? I had serious doubts about whether I could handle the Alabama job. After my first season there in '69, I bet Bear Bryant did too, as we had the worst record in school history. We won 4 games and lost 20. It was obvious to me if I wanted to keep my job, I had to find a way to get the best players in the state to stay home and integrate the athletic department, a concept that only a few years earlier would have seemed unimaginable. Although the Supreme Court had ruled segregation to be unconstitutional in 1954, enforcing that in the South, and especially in Alabama, was no picnic. In 1962, Alabama elected George Wallace as governor, and he wasn't exactly a big fan of integration. What followed was a big showdown with the federal government in a failed attempt at stopping the University of Alabama from desegregating.
The governor is adamant. He made a campaign promise to stand in the doorway himself to prevent the integration of the last all-white state university.
By 1969, there were only 9 black football and basketball players combined in the SEC, and none were at Alabama. Clearly, it was a different time.
It was scary. It was scary because at that particular time, you would have Ku Klux Klan roadblocks, and you would have to pass through those roadblocks. Riding up and there's a state trooper checking license, you can't turn around. You gotta go through. And it was like, man, you know, what's going to happen, you know? And when I look at it, there was a lot of moments when you feared for your life.
And as you can imagine, black students were leery of enrolling at Alabama.
There wasn't a lot of black students on campus then. You know, there probably wasn't over 12, 15 black students at Alabama.
But I needed players, and it didn't make any sense that the best basketball players in the state of Alabama weren't coming to the University of Alabama. So I set my sights on convincing a 6'6" skinny high school senior from Birmingham named Wendell Hudson to become the first black athlete to accept a scholarship at the University of Alabama.
The racial history in Alabama, A lot of it happened right in my hometown. You know, Birmingham being the racial mecca of the protest. 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. One of the young ladies that got killed in that, mother taught me in high school. And so we know about all the stuff that had happened down here. But CM came in our house, single mom, me and my mom, my sister, you know, and he came in and sat down and he really made her feel comfortable. And then one of the things that she asked him, what is it gonna be like for my son down in Alabama?
When Wendell's mom asked me how he'd be treated at Alabama, I told her, look, I'm just a middle-class white guy. What could I really say? I'd lived in the South my whole life, but I hadn't lived in it like Wendell's family.
He said, I don't know. You know, we're in uncharted water here, and so how can I tell you exactly how it's gonna be? He said, but what I will promise you is that I will take care of it.
For some reason, they trusted me, and Wendell accepted a scholarship to Alabama. So I knew I had to do everything I could to live up to my word.
You're the first black athlete to sign at the University of Alabama. That was a big deal. But there was only one sports writer at my house because Sim wanted to be a natural event, like signing 2 other guys from Alabama, 2 guys from Selma, you know, and so it was not gonna be national press that everybody else is signing, so it wasn't national press at my signing. If you're gonna treat everybody alike, let's treat everybody alike.
Let's face it, no matter what, Wendell was never gonna be like everybody else.
I get to campus, and I went down to the cafeteria, and the football players were in there, and they were eating, and they were talking, and, you know, football players, you know, it's noise, 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 noise. And when I walked through the line, before I got to the end of the servant area, it was quiet enough to hear a pin drop on carpet. I don't even know if all of them knew that they had signed a black basketball player. But what they know now, there's a black guy coming in through this line, through the same line I went through, and he's gonna eat. You know, he's not on the serving side. So the rest of that story is that as I got up to the front, it was so quiet, it was unbelievable. And when I turned the corner, there was a wall in between where you ate and where you got your food and that kind of stuff. The people back there serving in line were black. And the smiles on their faces were unbelievable. I mean, they were just, you know, just smiling. And I had more food on that plate than I could have eaten in a week.
The first black athletes had way more pressure than just to be good players on them. They had to be role models in every sense of the word. So it was a pressure situation, not just for them, but for the coaches that got them. And CM was that first coach that brought a black player in, and I think that was a gamble. That was a gamble that had to be taken, but nevertheless, when you put your chips out there and you don't know what the result's gonna be, it's a gamble.
I don't know if I would call it a gamble, but I would call it an act of courage. An act of courage by Wendell Hudson.
Every day that freshman year, every day I had a reason to quit. Every day that I went on the campus, I had a reason to quit. My freshman year, I never had a class with another black person. I took a history class, and the instructor was talking about how, you know, slaves had everything that they wanted to have, and it was, how they were taken care of. I'm like, oh, whoa. In the class. Hey, man, nobody want to be no slave. No. Nobody want to live like that. No. And so that professor and I had some knockdown dragouts, and I know he wanted me to drop that class because he didn't stop talking like that because I was in the class. And I was bound and determined that you ain't gonna run me out of this class, and I'm gonna fight this. I flunked that class, by the way.
And that was just on campus. When Wendell started playing ball on the road, it got worse.
So my first trip to Mississippi, I played 5 minutes, had 5 fouls. So I had to do a lot of sitting, and I had to do a lot of hearing. And back then, you know, the teams in the SEC sit on the visitors team. They put the students right behind the visitors team. And I would say I was called everything possible.
I remember that bus trip home When we crossed the state line, Wendell told the driver to stop the bus. He got out, kissed the ground, and said he'd never been so happy to be back in Alabama. Everybody laughed, but it really wasn't funny.
See him, we sit behind the bench at the freshman game and then go get administrators from the other team to get some of the people out of there and trying to get control over their students and the words that they were using. And because of what I was going through, I mean, he went to the SEC office and lobbied at the SEC meetings to change the seating of the visiting team in basketball. And actually what he ended up doing, he got the rule changed in the SEC. So my next year of playing, we were not on the student side. He was always trying to protect me. CM was always trying to protect me, and he was doing what he told my mother. He was trying to protect me.
I didn't realize that when we first got there and he started having black athletes, they burned a cross in our yard. I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware of it because my parents didn't make a big deal of it. I also didn't realize at the time the letters that he was getting from people in the community. And the hate mail was unbelievable. And not only was the hate mail unbelievable, but from whom the hate mail came from. There was pastors, prominent pastors in that area that were writing him hate mail letters about having, they didn't use the word black, but having, athletes that weren't white. And it was hurtful to Dad, but he never even, I never knew it until later on in life.
I didn't see the value in making that stuff public. It would only make the spotlight on Wendell worse, and I just wanted to make his experience as good as I could.
On the freshman team, I averaged double figures in rebounds and scoring and all that kind of stuff. So we're going through practice, and it's this, let's block out, these block-out drills. And so I wasn't rebounding the ball the way I was as a freshman. And so Coach Newton called me in his office, and he said, well, Hud, you're not rebounding the ball. I said, Coach, what you want me to do? You want me to block out, or you want me to rebound the ball? How many coaches are going to allow you to say, Coach, let me play? That's basically what I was saying. And he was like, okay, go do it. Go try it. That's what playing with CM was so different. I know I was playing for the right person.
Wendell did lead us in rebounding, but more importantly, he was like a beacon of light for Alabama. The next year, the football team became integrated.
There's this revisionist history that's taken place with Alabama's integration. They talk about, Alabama playing Southern Cal in football in Legion Field and how that was what changed it. I'm going to tell you what changed it. If Wendell Hudson doesn't succeed, Auburn's going to use it against him in recruiting, all the teams in the Northeast that are recruiting him. It was Wendell coming and having a good experience is what paved the way.
And before you knew it, we were getting the best black basketball players in Alabama to stay home and suit up for us.
The only time we dealt with racial tension was when we went on the court. Off the court, we was in a safe haven. We was always protected. He somehow brought us all together to deal with this adversity that we're dealing with. I had so much pressure on me, but I was able to talk to him and say, Coach, I've got this problem, that problem. And he was always involved, and we always would communicate.
I have to admit, when it came to dealing with the players, I did have help from my wife, Evelyn.
Evelyn Newton, from day one, was the most welcoming, you're no different than anybody else person. And there was never, ever any doubt that she was just a straightforward, honest person that didn't see and didn't have some of the problems that a lot of these other people had. The way she treated you and embraced you, you were one of her people. Not just me, not just black or white, everybody. And the way she was toward everybody helped that family bond, and it was unbelievable.
It was great that the guys felt comfortable, but nobody was going to care if we kept losing. We had to start winning. And then when we did. 1971-72, we had our first winning season at Alabama as we won 18-8. And we weren't half bad to watch either.
And we ran a fast break. We were a fast-breaking basketball team. We averaged over 80 points a game, and it was not unusual for us to score 100 points. As long as you was in your range and you were on balance, shoot the basketball. It was just fun.
What made it even better was we finally beat Adolph Rupp in my final game against him in his final season. I lost the first 7 times I coached against my old mentor, and I wanted to give him a parting gift since I knew he was the one who recommended me for the Alabama job in the first place. Although part of me always felt like he helped me get the job because he knew it would be real easy to beat me. And he did win 7 out of 8, so maybe I was right. But the Baron retired before we got really good. The next year, 1973, we won 22 games. And Wendell was named the SEC Player of the Year. I could not have been prouder. The team also made its first postseason tournament ever when we got invited to the NIT. Now, the NIT was a big deal back then, considering only one team from each conference would go to the NCAA tournament. So we were about to go to New York City, and that's when all the fun started.
CM was in his office, and Coach Bryant came down and started chatting with him. And CM said it wasn't like Coach Bryant just to come down to my office and make small talk, you know. And finally, Coach Bryant said, "Well, I guess you're not going to ask me then, huh?" He said, "What, Coach?" He said, "Well, I was hoping you'd invite me to go to New York to the game." He said, "Coach, didn't think you needed an invitation. You're the director of athletics."
Yeah, Alabama going their first national tournament. That was a big story. But the big story was Bear Bryant going to New York to watch a basketball game and to move in spring practice, which at Alabama it was football and spring football. And when that happened, that was unbelievable.
So wouldn't you know it, in the first round we're supposed to play Manhattan on the Isle of Manhattan. So I figured we could use all the help we could get. And I set the Bear on the end of the bench, trademark houndstooth hat and all.
You had the houndstooth. Matter of fact, he didn't go anywhere without the houndstooth. He had the hat on the bench. But Coach Brown didn't know the game. He called a free throw field goal. Y'all got to hit those field goals, you know, not free throw, field goal. And he was yelling at the officials. He was yelling at us, talking about, you know, you can't miss those field goals. You got to make them, and, you know, we was cracking up.
The refs wanted me to shut him up, but there was no way I was going to ask the Bear to stop growling, because he was Bear Bryant. Maybe he'd scare the refs and get us a call. Turns out we won it on a last-second shot. The whole experience is one I won't ever forget.
The NIT that particular year is really what put Alabama basketball on the map. You got an athletic director and a football coach that showed that he supported you, but more or less he showed that he supported the coach by being there.
Things were certainly on the upswing for us. In fact, we would win the SEC title 3 years in a row from 74 to 76. The only SEC team besides Kentucky ever to do that. We also broke a rule, the unwritten one in the conference, that no team would start more than 2 black players. Well, in 74, we started 5 and put that quota system to bed where it belonged.
That took courage from a coach to put 5 black guys on the court. And people throwing batteries, spitting on us. We was like, you know, covering our head. But then before we got in the tournament, we turned and we pointed to the scoreboard because we was up by 20-something. So, you know, so you're spitting, but look at what's going on.
To me, it was always satisfying to see the team play with grace despite the burden they were under. And I was never more proud of them than the 1976 NCAA tournament. First, we easily took out Dean Smith and his powerhouse Carolina team. And then in the Sweet 16, we got a shot at the best team in the nation.
Here they are playing Indiana, the undefeated Hoosiers. Number one, unquestionably, great players everywhere you turn.
We played the Hoosiers tough that day. We weren't intimidated by their ranking or their pedigree, and I thought we had them.
Late in the game, Alabama up a little bit, has the ball, fast break. Kent Benson, who is Indiana's great center, playing against Alabama's great center, Leon Douglas, and Benson has 4 fouls. Douglas is going in for a layup. Benson crashes into him, and an official who is back where I am at the scorer's table blows his whistle and then hesitates. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? And he calls Douglas for a charge. It takes away the free throw, keeps Benson in the game, and Indiana ends up winning the game. But it was a nip and tuck game that Alabama was going to win, and there's not anybody who follows Alabama basketball who can't repeat that same sequence to you that I just did.
Worst call in the history of college basketball. Remember as clear as day. I was probably 12, sitting by Coach Bryant's wife. She was at the game. I was sitting with her at the game, and she was yelling at the officials, and she didn't know anything about basketball, so it was, yeah, she knew it was a bad call.
You know, at the end, Bobby Knight came in talking about the best team didn't win, and, you know, you guys have a great team. And I looked at Coach. You know, he didn't cry, but you could see the redness, you know, because he knew how close we had gotten. And had we been able to beat Indiana, we would have won the national championship. Without a doubt, we would have won.
Looking back, I was probably crying inside. You can feel it in your bones when you think you have a team that can win it all, and when you don't, it really hurts. As years went by at Alabama, while I continued to have good teams, I never had one of those teams again. And by 1980, I'd gotten a little discouraged and worn out. Evelyn had always said it's good to leave when you're still in love, so that's what I did. When I think back on my 12 years there, I'm proud of what we accomplished, and you can just see the progress that we made, not just at Alabama, but in the entire SEC. I always believed in the basic goodness of people, and that's the way it ended up. In 1980, I went to work as an administrator for the SEC. I had a normal life and a 9-to-5 job. My coaching career was over, done with. A year later, I changed my mind. I became head coach at Vanderbilt. I guess I just missed that soothing inner calm and peaceful feeling that only coaching can give you. I also got involved in USA basketball. And then before you knew it, I was on the staff of our 1984 Olympic team. Bobby Knight was the head coach, and I'm pretty sure they kept me around to go fishing with Bobby and to make sure he behaved. He did for him, and we won the gold medal. That was pretty nice. But what wasn't nice was the fact I had 3 straight losing seasons at Vandy from 84 to 86. Then in 1986, fate once again smiled on me as the three-point shot was adopted in college basketball. You know, most coaches are purists, and they thought the three was a novelty. But when I was watching international basketball, I saw its value. I didn't have the best players in the country, but I did have some pretty good shooters. So where other coaches saw a gimmick, I saw an opportunity.
We had a shooting contest in the first couple of days of practice. So everybody on the team could go out and shoot, I don't remember what the number was, 150, some large number of three-pointers. If you made at least, I think it was 30%, then you had the green light. You had license to fire three-pointers.
Goheen for 3. Blanton hoping for a charge. It's not there, and there's Barry Booker. An 11-point lead, the game's largest.
I cannot ever remember a single time where we had a three-pointer called a two-pointer because somebody's foot was on the line.
Booker on the three-point.
If it happened, it was called to our attention loudly by Coach Newton. We led the league in makes, attempts, percentage, just every category you could come up with in those early days of the three-point shot. A lot of coaches just absolutely didn't like the rule, but it was the rule, and Coach Newton exploited the three-point line as much as any coach in the country.
C.M. Newton loves that three-point shot.
And that really helped us take the program to another level.
We had a blast as we bombed our way into a winning team. And the next year in '88 became the first Vanderbilt squad to make the NCAA tournament in 14 years. We got by a first round and then played number 2 seeded Pittsburgh in a game I'll never forget.
I don't think any team had a better starting five than Pitt. They had won the Big East, and back in that era, the Big East was the king of the hill in terms of conferences. But we had the advantage on the bench of C.M. Newton.
If I was our big advantage, then we were in a heap of trouble, which is exactly what we found ourselves in, down 4 points with only 12 seconds left.
12 seconds to go. They need a basket, and they have to get the ball back somehow. Here is Barry Goheen. It's a three-pointer and a timeout called by Vanderbilt. They trail by 1 with 5 seconds to go.
I hit three-pointer, we're down by 1. We call our last timeout. It's never, hey, we may not win this game, but you've had a really good season. You know, there's none of that. I mean, it's, look, we can still win this game, or we can still keep playing. Let's do this. As a player, you feed off that. If you think your coach has confidence in you, then you have confidence.
Yep, that was my strategy to a T. Lead the team into a dire situation and then give them false hope that they can get out of it. So our best player, Will Perdue, fouls out. And after Pitt makes 2 free throws, we're down 3 with 4 seconds left and no timeouts. My plan was working to perfection. We had them right where we wanted them.
And they'll have 4 seconds to try to get a three-pointer to send it in overtime.
Now, Barry Goheen had made game winners that season, like 5 game winners, something crazy. CM had Barry Goheen take 3 dribbles, boom, boom.
Here they come, Goheen. Didn't have control. Basket is good. Goheen ties it up at the buzzer.
That's the essence of coaching. When you're down 3 in the final seconds, make sure you shoot a 3, and for God's sake, make sure it goes in.
We have absolutely no shot in overtime. The whole team's frazzled, everything, and they beat us in overtime. CM was always a guy that, whether he was at Alabama, whether he was at Vandy, he lifted people up.
I will always be grateful to those players for their unwavering belief and their spirit and their shooting. During the next season, we would reach the NCAA tournament again. And as I approached my 60th birthday, I could see myself riding off into the coaching sunset after a couple more years at Vandy. But I guess that just was not my destiny. It was the spring of 1989, and my alma mater was in trouble. They were about to be penalized by the NCAA. They offered me the position of athletic director while I was still coaching at Vandy. And as Bear Bryant once said after returning to his alma mater to coach at Alabama, when mama calls, you have to listen. So I listened. Kentucky needed me, and they didn't say I was too nice for the job. So I took it.
This is a very difficult decision because I have security at Vanderbilt, and also we built a competitive program. But the opportunity and the challenge and really the great love and respect I have for the university is something that made me want to make this change.
Shortly after I was hired, the penalties came.
If that old Kentucky home had been built by the basketball team, then today the walls came tumbling down. The Wildcat program has been banned from postseason play for 2 years for widespread NCAA rules violations.
These are obviously significant penalties.
We've got a real rebuilding job to do, and it's going to be a tough job. It's not going to be.
To me, there was one way to right the program. Get the right coach.
Athletic director C.M. Newton has spent the last 2 months in search of a new head coach, stymied by concern among applicants about the NCAA penalty.
Well, my feeling there is if they do, then so be it. We'll get us a good basketball coach, and the same criteria still holds: somebody that can do the job, somebody that understands the job, and somebody that wants the job.
During my search, I zeroed in on Rick Pitino. I needed a coach with enthusiasm and energy and optimism, and he had it. He also had success, taking Providence College to the Final Four and revitalizing his hometown New York Knicks. The problem was we would be on probation for 3 years. That was a tough sell for any coach, much less one of the hottest ones going. but I pursued him anyway. I always figured if I got Evelyn, I could get anybody. And what can I say? In the end, I guess I killed him with kindness and the lure of Kentucky.
It's really just my privilege to present to the members of the media Coach Rick Pitino. And Rick, as I've already indicated to you personally, and I'll do it publicly, I really pledge my total support through these next 7 years. And I'm going to have some fun now. Coach Pitino. Thank you.
And right from the beginning, I knew we'd found the right guy.
You take everything you can to get a hold of Kentucky tickets. Don't think of oil, don't think of horses. Think of Kentucky basketball tickets. They're going to be the most precious item in life.
Rick meant what he said as he turned us around quicker than anyone could have imagined. In just his second season, we won the SEC, announcing loudly that we were back. Things were looking up for me as well. As the person now in charge of USA Basketball, I'd helped put together our first Olympic team featuring NBA players. In the summer of '92, I got to be part of the greatest squad ever assembled in basketball history. And I'm certain that when anyone mentions the Dream Team, the first name that comes to mind is C.M. Newton. But like I told you at the beginning of this story, I've been at the right place at the right time. And you can say that about my years that followed at Kentucky, too, as Pitino led us to our 6th NCAA title.
Kentucky is the king of college basketball. How sweet it is.
It had been a great run, considering where we'd been just a few years earlier. And we'd also broken down some barriers. We hired Bernadette Maddox as a female assistant coach in the men's game, and then she became the first African-American woman's head coach in the SEC.
He looked you in the eye and he said, "This is what I want. I know you can do the job, and I want you to do this." It meant a great deal to me that CM had that type of confidence in me, and he trusted me.
And then in '97, Pitino left to coach the Boston Celtics. So I had one more big hire left to make. Tubby Smith, Kentucky's first African-American men's head coach.
First, I want to thank C.M. Newton for this offer and this opportunity to lead a great basketball program and be a part of the Wildcat family. Coach Newton, when he came after me, I was the first guy he talked with, and that's quite a compliment. And it's more important that I be judged on the content of my character, not the color of my skin.
I suppose it was natural for some people to wonder how Tubby would be received at Kentucky. I remember an African-American columnist pleading with him not to come.
Marilyn Davis was concerned that there may be some racial tension, as many were in the African-American and black community. You know, is Kentucky ready for this?
Coach Newton was wired to do the right thing, whether that was popular or whether that was unpopular. He felt Tubby was the right guy to hire for the University of Kentucky, and he did it. And I don't know if everybody would have done that, but Coach Newton did. You got to respect the man for it.
Tubby becoming the head coach at Kentucky was important because he would be the first, and that's always important. But I didn't believe that his skin color mattered to the people of Kentucky. It was a different time.
I understood the folks at the University of Kentucky and the Big Blue Nation, they care about winning. It was going to be a tough move to follow Rick Pitino. It was pretty much a legend coach, and it wasn't smooth that first year. There was a little uneasiness there. I felt the pressure to continue the great tradition, but then you add on this, that you're an African-American, you're black, and you're the first black coach there, you're going, okay. You would question yourself whether you could handle being the head coach. But Coach Newton would say, "Look, Tubby, you can do this." He'd come in, win or lose, and he'd put his arm around you and tell you, "Hey, look, things are going to be okay." He was just there to to help see you through it.
And all Tubby did was deliver us a national championship in his first year as coach. Not bad. And you could be sure the Baron would have been proud of that.
And now it is a tremendous pleasure and with great personal pride that I present this championship trophy to the University of Kentucky Wildcats, Coach Tubby Smith.
Handing Tubby that championship trophy was the best moment in my college basketball life.
C.M. Newton made this dream come true to win an NCAA national championship. He was like a father figure. And my dad wasn't there when we won it in '98, but I felt like Coach Newton was representing my dad.
The year was 2000. I'd just lost Evelyn, my life's love. I felt that my work at Kentucky was done. I'd come home to do one last job. I'd done it, and so it was time to retire. One day that year, the phone rang. They wanted me to come to Springfield, Massachusetts, to the Basketball Hall of Fame. I figured it was to attend somebody's induction. Turns out it was to be my own. I couldn't get used to the idea. C.M. Newton was going into the Hall of Fame.
He's in the Hall of Fame as a contributor. A contributor is somebody that does something that is recognized because they care.
He treated you like you wanted to be treated as a person. And the number of people that's been affected by him being a part of basketball. I mean, I talk to coaches and people that I know now that say, I mean, you might not know this, man, but CM helped me get my first job, or CM did this for me, or CM did that.
Great man of character and a great father figure, because he had to be a father figure to lead us. But the way he carried himself and the way he presented himself to us, I became a man all through him.
CM's legacy has to be changing the culture of Alabama basketball and, to a great extent, Alabama athletics. The fact that it went so well was great for not just the sport of basketball, not just for the University of Alabama, for the state of Alabama.
All African-American people wanted out of life is the opportunity. And fortunately, because of Coach C.M. Newton, Wendell Hudson had that opportunity. And because of the Wendell Hudsons of the world, you have a guy like Coach Avery Johnson that has an opportunity to coach at the University of Alabama.
I think his legacy is going to be one of courage, about adding value to everyone he touches, and then the integrity that he worked with throughout his life.
Every father should be a role model for their kids, not pro athletes or coaches or whatever. I was fortunate that he was a, quote, celebrity, so to speak, but I didn't look at him that way.
My son, Martin, who's been with me on numerous clinics, is going to demonstrate the dribbling drills, which is the first category of drills.
I've never looked at it as wanting to be, oh, I'm C.M. Newton's son, although I'm C.M. Newton's son, and I'm proud of being C.M. Newton's son. If I ever got anything because I'm C.M. Newton's son, amen, man, I'll take that 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
All you young men and women need in order to become basketball players are a basketball, a real commitment, and a willingness to work. It's my hope that this film will serve to help each of you to begin to realize your potential as basketball players. Good luck.
So here I am, 87 years old, the luckiest of dads, the luckiest of husbands, the luckiest of men. Over 40 years in the SEC. I called Adolph Rupp a mentor and Bear Bryant a friend. Coached great young men from Wendell Hudson to Barry Goheen. Shared in the goal of 4 Olympic gold medals and 3 national championships. Somehow, I always found myself in the right place at the right time. If I lifted anyone up, it was only as high as others had lifted me. They wanted me to tell my story, and if you're still watching, then maybe there was something to it. The story of a lucky man, still lucky enough to be able to tell it.